Thank you for joining us. Good morning. Hi. Thanks for joining us for our winter necropsy at the Department of Environment in collaboration with the Ritz, the Ambassador of the Environment. We found this lemon shark last year in 2025 in October. Somebody was walking their dog and saw something in the water. They called our enforcement officers, who called me, and we collected it as we do with any shark that is dead in our waters that we can carry physically or retrieve. And now is the time to essentially do a post-mortality exam to collect biological information, because yes, the shark is dead, but there's still valuable information we can get from the animal, at least. And also for us, in terms of conservation, we want to find out what was the cause of death, because that will help us in the future for management decisions, policies, and so forth. So at the beginning, I want to just give you a quick brief on sharks in general, for those that don't know maybe a lot about the animal. Sharks are fish. They breathe through gills like any other fish. They don't have lungs or anything. They absorb the oxygen from the water through the gills. But they are a little bit different from our common reef fish, bony fish on the reef. Bony fish, for example, have swim bladders. Sharks don't have swim bladders. They have a very oily liver that we're going to have a look at a little bit later. They also don't have bones. So sharks have cartilage, and they don't have a rib cage. Like when you have probably done like a fillet of a fish that you want to eat, you probably see all the bones in the meat. Sharks don't have that. All they have is cartilage and a spine. So nothing to support their body really. And the cartilage is also very fragile, because it's the stuff that our nose and our ears are made out of. And that is one of the major differences between bony fish and sharks. The other one is that the shark skin is made out of dermal denticles. It's essentially modified teeth. So over evolution, they kind of design an armor of tiny teeth, and they are placed like tiles on a roof on the shark's body. And this way, if you stroke it this way, it's very smooth and streamlined, so it reduces drag when they're swimming, so it's more energy efficient. And when you go this way, it's like sandpaper. Sharks have an additional sense that other fish don't have. They have electroreception, and those are tiny pores all over their body really, but they're more concentrated on the snout. They're called ampulla of Lorenzini, and those can pick up minute electric currents in the water column. So every living organism emits some kind of electric field, right? So that by our heartbeat alone. And sharks can pick that up, but only when they're like a meter or two away from the animal. So mostly the young sharks, for example, they're gonna search the sand, like the stingrays in Stinger City. They're going over the sand, almost like a metal detector. Then they go back and forth trying to locate where the animal, the shrimp, the mussel, the crab is hidden in the sand, and then they try to dig in. So then, just coming to general anatomy, they have two fins. These guys are pec fins, like on a plane. They're helping with uplift. Then we have the pelvic fins in the pelvic area, the anal fin here, and then the caudal fin. The caudal fin is usually designed to also help with uplift. The longer upper lobe helps also create uplift when the shark is swimming. Sharks do have to swim in order to stay elevated in the water column. If they don't swim, they will sink. Then we have two dorsal fins that also help with navigation. In lemon sharks in particular, these are helping us to identify the species. So obviously when I see a dead shark, the first thing we have to do is identify the species before we go further into the biological data. So in here we can write down, this is a lemon shark, and a lemon shark they have quite a rounded but pointy nose. For example, the nurse sharks, as you know, they have a much wider head, and they have not as much of a pointy snout like this one. They also have very equal sized dorsal fins. So the first one and the second one are almost like sails, and they're almost equal size. That one is a little bit smaller, but in other sharks, this one is like much smaller than the first dorsal fin. So that is one criteria when you see a shark swimming in shallow water and they might show you the two dorsal fins. That is one of the identifying criteria that you can look for. If you see the first one and the second one and they look the same size, then it's definitely a lemon shark. If it is a little bit smaller or you don't see the second one, and it's probably a different species like Caribbean reef or blacktip, for example. Then lemon sharks also have teeth. I mean, all sharks have teeth, but they have a little bit bigger teeth than, let's say, a nurse shark, and you do usually see them when they swim, because the way that sharks breathe is they have it open a little bit just so the water can go through the mouth and then over the gills. If the mouth is closed, there is no way for the water to go over the gills. So sharks always have to open up their mouth a little bit to swim, and because they don't have lips like we do, they can't really hide their teeth, so that even if they're just normal and just relaxed swimming in the water, you might actually see teeth when it comes straight at you. So sharks they don't need really dentists at all. They have quite strong teeth as in their makeup themselves, but also when they do break a tooth, or if it does become loose or it does become old, worn over time, they will fall out, and then you'll see there's a row behind the first row waiting already to pop up, and behind that row is already another one. So there are already all the teeth waiting for the first ones that they actually use to fall out and then continue. So are we ready for our measurements? From the tip of the snout, so we start at the tip, we go over the body, sorry, we're not taking total length, we're taking 3/4 length, and we're going over the body all the way to a notch. There's a little notch here just before the caudal fin, and to that tip, and that is the pre-caudal length. The pre-caudal length on this animal is 61 centimeters. And then the total length is just the last bit of the tail. So we'll go up on the tail. Okay, then the total length is 77.8 centimeters. And then the last one we'll do is the girth. So I'm just taking it behind the pec fins, like around the chest area if you want to call it that. And that is 25 centimeters. Boy and girl sharks, they have one distinguishing features. Essentially, boys have two claspers, so tiny little appendages here, and the girls, they don't have that. In babies like this, the claspers are so small that you wouldn't see it from the side. The fins are too big, they overshadow it. But in mature sharks, these claspers will become bigger and bigger, and then you will see them on the side. Like when you see a shark swimming, when you're diving or snorkeling, you look at the bottom here, and if you see two sausages essentially, it is a boy. Okay, now the next step is to check for injuries essentially. So we just look at the outside if there's any obvious injuries that could have caused why they died. I'm not seeing any cuts here. No parasites. I mean, not that parasites would have caused the death. It's just interesting from a biological standpoint. Can give you indication of health. I'm seeing here on the head a little tiny wire sticking out, so that could be a indication that there might be a hook inside. So we'll have a look in a little bit. Yeah. So other than that, I don't think there's any other obvious injuries. So I think the problem was the fisherman accidentally hooked the shark, found out, okay, there's a shark on the line, tried to probably get the hook out because they usually want to have their fishing gear back when they are fishing to actually catch the fish that they want to get. Didn't get it, and then just decided to hope for the best, cut the line and let the shark live, because usually they do survive accidents. I mean, depending on the stress level, it's not always guaranteed. Sharks, especially the babies, you have to imagine they have to hunt for their food, right? So we don't know what kind of state they are in, if they have been eaten recently or not recently, what their energy levels are, how much capacity they have to survive like a stress event like that. So he probably thought the best would be to release it, and then unfortunately the shark was just not able to survive the gut hooking, because yeah, that's pretty much a death sentence right there if it happens. The baby sharks, or any shark, it doesn't matter if it's a lemon shark or a different species, are immediately on their own when they're getting born. So mothers or fathers don't give parental care to babies They give birth, and then the baby sharks have to immediately find shelter from bigger predators, right? Because the little shark, they are prey to bigger sharks, bigger fish like barracuda, for example, bigger predators. And they also have to figure out how to find food. So obviously a little crab or a shrimp or a mussel that is like not as mobile is easier for a shark to eat than, let's say, a very mobile fish that can swim away and maybe have had an experience to escape from predators or something. So the next step would be to open up the shark, have a look at the stomach contents, see what it ate last, if it did eat anything, and then also remove the hook to see what happened there exactly. So the largest organ in the body is the very oily liver. So it has 2 lobes. I'm not sure why it's not the same length. This is unusual. Usually they're the same length. It might just be because it's little and this is fat storage, right? The liver is very oily. Do you see it good? It is very oily, and this is where the shark stores any leftover food that it doesn't use in fat. It doesn't have any other fat storage in the actual body, so this is where it stores it. So the liver tells us whether the shark is healthy, if it was well fed, because if it is nice and squishy, it's big, it has, I mean, this has been frozen, so it's not as pink as it's supposed to be, but it used to be pink. There is no discoloration, so this was actually a really healthy baby. It seems to be well fed. I mean, there's like loads of fat deposit in here, so this is great. And the oil in the liver is called squalene. If you want to check whether your cosmetic products have squalene or in it, you look at the back, and if it's spelled with an E, squalene, it is from a shark. If it's called squalane with an A, then it's a synthetic product. So it is minor, the difference with an A and an E, but it makes a huge difference for shark conservation. Okay, moving on to the stomach. So I'll remove the stomach, the intestine. Okay, the hook has not made it down to the actual stomach entrance. That's where the mouth end is. This is where the anus is. This is the intestine here, and then this is the stomach, and then you have all the other organs like the kidney, the spleen, and the gallbladder there. So let's have a look. It looks very empty, and I can't really feel anything. So let's have a look. Opening it up. So what we're doing with this is I put all the stomach content into the water. So we have an initial volume that we know how much water is in there, and then we'll take after everything is in, the end volume minus the initial volume, and then we know how much was in the stomach. There was nothing in there other than seawater and some sand. It's normal for babies. I mean, clearly it was hungry, that's why I took the bait. Yeah, no surprise there. And the babies, because they are eating those like fast digestible items like shrimp and crabs and a lot of sand with that. The kidney is like here by the spine, so I can't really take it out because it will be mush by the time I'm extracting it. It's usually also when I freeze it, it's not really great, but I can show you like this at least. Okay, the other thing I can extract is the heart for you. Okay, so that's the heart. It has 2 chambers. One chamber pumps the blood from the gills, oxygenated blood from over the gills. Then the oxygenated blood comes into the heart. The other chamber pumps it throughout the body, back to the heart, and then it goes into the other chamber to go back to the gills, and so on. Okay, so the hook is a little bit too far down already in the esophagus, so I will have to cut it open and try to get it from the other side. We call this gut hooked, and that's really difficult to get out for fishermen because it's too far down. I'm curious what kind of hook he used. Okay, so that's the hook just for you to see the last part of it. It's a J hook. A circle hook would be a rounder shape like a circle. Fishermen use that usually for like typical snapper fishing, correct me if I'm wrong, yeah? Right, snapper advised to use a circle hook. This would be a circle hook, and the circle hook usually doesn't go down the throat and to the stomach. It will usually catch the shark on the side of the mouth, and that is way easier to remove for a fisherman. And even if you don't want to remove the hook, like some fishermen might not be comfortable enough to go close, I don't blame them. If you then just cut the line like he did, it would be at the side of the mouth, and usually that doesn't stop the shark from eating, and that's all it needs to do. As long as the shark, it can feed and it can breathe through the gills, so the gills are not damaged, the shark will be fine. The hook will eventually rust out. Last part is to estimate the age of the shark. The way we do this in science is there is a specific growth function, like a formula essentially, and they have specific parameters depending on the species. If you want to watch the previous ones, we've done a summer series. We did 3 sharks back in the summer. They are all on the behaviour YouTube channel.